I found the corner table by accident. My cousin Jen had been hawking me into the backyard picnic area. Come sit with us, Millie. But the sight of my parents, my aunts and uncles, my brother with his new fiancée, the entire family clustered around folding chairs and Tupperware lids, made my throat tighten. Their laughter was bright and infectious. Strangers wandering by would have thought it the best kind of celebration. But I hadn't been invited. Jen's smile flickered when she realized how uncomfortable I looked, and suddenly I was alone. I slunk through the screened porch door, past the mountain of potato salad and the grill glistening with burgers, and ended up pushing into the afternoon sun of a small patio behind the cafe adjacent to my grandparents' old farmhouse. 3 wrought iron tables, paint chipped like aged china, sat empty except for one where the waiter, seeing my burst of hesitation, hurried over. "Can I get you something to drink?" he asked. I nodded before I could think. "Coffee iced, please." Black. I resisted the urge to apologize for being late, for showing up at all, for whatever I'd done that made my family fold up their chairs and retreat into a circle from which I was unceremoniously absent. He smiled, as if he understood needing space, and promised he'd be back in 2 shakes. I settled into the iron chair, the mesh seat cool against my jeans. The sky was that perfect spring blue, the kind that makes you squint toward the sun, even with your back turned. I slid my phone out and stared at the screen. A text from Mom, sent 20 minutes ago. "Where are you?" "We're by the oak tree. Food's getting cold." I was 2 feet away, but I didn't respond. My thumb hovered, then moved away. Beneath the whimsy of cousins trading stories about who'd gotten engaged or run a marathon or just gotten another promotion, I had nothing to say. I'd bought my ticket, driven 90 minutes, and shown up, only to feel like an uninvited guest in my own family's backyard. I sighed. My phone buzzed again. My brother Daniel, this time. "Hey, hope you're okay. We saved you a seat." The heart emoji felt oily on the screen. I pocketed the phone. If they wanted to exclude me, I would make sure they couldn't see my hurt. My eyes drifted to the cafe's walkway, a cobblestone strip that wound around a stone fountain, overhung with wisteria. It was quiet here, the guitars of a busker 2 blocks away drifting through the open door and faded by the ivy-covered building. A soft clink sounded, and the waiter reappeared with a frosty glass of coffee. "On the house," he said quietly, placing it next to me. I blinked. "Why?" He shrugged, this half shrug with shoulders before he turned away. "Family reunions, right? Enjoy." I managed a small thanks, though I meant it more than I'd meant anything all afternoon. Taking a sip, cold black coffee hit me like a slap. The world came into focus. My hand shook just enough that a drop of coffee curled over the rim. I wiped it on my jeans and pulled out my wallet, though I knew I didn't need to pay. I flipped through cards, insurance, loyalty, library, and settled on my debit card because my grandfather always lectured me. Never trust a cafe to remember what you owe. I snapped a photo of the coffee, hit send to my best friend Julia. Coffee and no one to share it with. Reunion fail. Hope Singh sullen one. Her reply pinged immediately. "Girl, you're too good for them. Treat yourself." I set the phone down, finishing the coffee. I'd left work early, burned PTO so I could make it home. I worked in marketing, writing whimsical email subject lines, and planning campaigns that made clients' eyes light up when they saw conversion rates climb. My life online was bold colors and big promises, but here, at the patio table, I was gray. I let the chair lean back on its hind legs for a moment, risky on the uneven stones, but felt stable. I could be okay outside their circle. My phone vibrated again, and I nearly refused to look, but then the name flashed. Aunt Marisol. I bit my lip. She was the family peacemaker, the one who wore big gold hoops and lavender-scented scarves. I opened it. No text, just a photo me, 10 years old, at my first dance recital, face smudged in pea green face paint, but smiling anyway. And below a caption, "Remember how brave you were then. Come join us. Love you." I looked back at the coffee, iced and now lukewarm. I closed my eyes. Maybe I deserved a moment of solitude. But Aunt Marisol remembered me, before I got my editor's byline, before I sent my first tweet, before I tried to prove I belonged. Maybe that mattered. I huffed out a breath and texted her, 5 minutes. Then I dialed Daniel back. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Hey," he said, voice tight. "Hey." He took a breath. "We're heading to the dessert table soon. Your favorite chocolate silk pie." A flicker in my chest. "Okay. See you soon?" I tapped out the last drops of coffee. "Yeah," I whispered. "See you soon." I slipped my card into my wallet, untouched, and stood up. The waiter was wiping down another table nearby. He looked at me and gave the barest nod of encouragement. I returned it with a soft smile. As I reached for the patio door, I realized I was already lighter. Sometimes you need to step outside the circle to remember why it matters. I closed the door softly behind me and walked back down the cobblestones toward the stone fountain, toward the wisteria and the hum of voices. And it felt like coming home. The screened porch door swung closed behind me, and I found myself blinking in the dappled shade of the oak grove. My boots crunched over fallen leaves as I picked my way back toward the picnic tables, hands deep in the pockets of my jean jacket. The familiar scent of grilled hot dogs and sweet tea drifted through the air, along with that buzz of easy laughter that had felt so alien an hour ago. But now, as I scanned the circle of faces, each turned to watch me approach, something inside shifted. My brother Daniel stepped forward, his easy grin wobbly for once. "Hey," he said, voice husky. "We saved you a spot." He gestured to the empty folding chair next to our dad. Dad's deep-set eyes softened when he saw me, and Mom, wiping her hands on her apron, gave me a tight little wave. My cousins scooted down, offering me space at the center of the table. I swallowed, sliding into the seat, heart pounding so loud I thought it might leak out my ears. "Chocolate silk pies waiting," Jen whispered, nudging me with an elbow that carried no malice, only apology. I nodded. Across the table, my Aunt Marisol handed me a paper plate piled with summer salad, baked beans, and a hunk of fried chicken. "Welcome home, sweetheart," she said, her voice thick with feeling. My throat tightened. I looked at the plate, simple picnic food, nothing fancy, but it was exactly what I needed. We ate bites of crisp lettuce, sweet corn, juicy tomato, mixing with the tinny taste of too much ketchup. But that was family, messy and perfectly imperfect. Around me, conversations wove. My cousin's new job in Seattle, my uncle's pride over his first grandchild, my father bragging about my cousin's little league strikeouts. When I stilled my fork, Dad reached across and patted my hand. "Glad you're here," he said as gently as if I were 8 again. After the main dishes, my aunt wiped down the table and brought out the chocolate silk pie, 3 deep pies, really, 1 for each table. The whipped cream was dolloped so high it threatened to collapse, and my aunt offered me the first slice with ceremonious flourish. I held the plate in both hands and looked at everyone. Jen leaned in. "Sorry I sort of left you out there," she said under her breath. I shook my head. "It's not your fault." I looked up at Mom, who closed her eyes in that way that meant apology without words. I reached over and touched her arm. "I know you missed me," I said softly. She nodded, tears glistening in her eyelashes. We passed slices around, forks clinking as we dove in. The pie was silk, light, airy, whisper-sweet with a hint of coffee and the comfort of home. I took a bite and closed my eyes, letting the flavor spread. My cousins cheered, half in jest, half because it felt like a celebration of something I'd forgotten belonging. After pie, someone pulled out an old karaoke machine. One of my uncles had brought it along. "Who wants to sing?" he roared. The machine crackled as he plugged it in. My cousin Mitch, ever the ham, belted out Sweet Caroline, and soon half the family was singing along, swaying, harmonizing off-key. I watched them, laughing as they passed the mic from one voice to the next. My phone buzzed, a text from Julia. "Glad you're back in the circle." "I knew you'd rock it," I replied with a winking emoji, and slipped the phone back into my pocket. Later, as the sun dipped low and the cicadas began their evening chorus, I wandered away from the noise toward the little patio where I'd found refuge. The wrought iron chairs were empty now. The cafe's screen door stood open. I could have slipped away again, found another quiet corner, a different table, an adult-only coffee with no reminders. But I didn't. Instead, I turned back, hailed the waiter as he pushed a cart of glass bottles and sodas, and smiled. "You did good," I said as he perched on the edge of a rusted chair. "That coffee? Thank you." He shrugged. "Nothing fancy," he said, tucking a stray black curl behind his ear. "Just a friendly face needs a friendly gesture. Besides," he kicked at a pebble, "I saw your family out there. They needed you back more than you needed coffee." I nodded, heat rising in my cheeks. "You were right." He kicked again, smiling. "Go. Join them." He rose, pushing the chair under the cart, and pointed back toward the oak grove. I squared my shoulders and stepped off the patio, following the glowing circles of laughter. Back with my family, I spent the last of the light playing catch with the kids, telling awful knock-knock jokes, sharing stories of our grandmother's famous cobbler recipes. When the sun finally sank behind the pines, they lit lanterns and we ate s'mores by the fire pit, sticky marshmallows and charred graham crackers that stuck between teeth. I sat between Jen and Mitch, leaning into the warmth, watching the sparks float upward like tiny ghosts of summers past. As the last embers glowed, Dad slipped his arm around my shoulders. "You ever want to just wander off again?" he said quietly. "You let me know, but I'd appreciate a heads up." He ruffled my hair. I laughed. "Deal." Jen raised a hand. "To Miller's Reunion, 2025 edition." We clinked graham cracker halves like glasses. The fire crackled and the night wrapped around us. No judgment, no distance, just family. I bit into my s'more, chocolate smeared across my smile, and realized I'd never eaten alone again.